Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's author webinar, and thank you for joining us. I'm Carol, and I'm part of the Learning and Content Management team. Also joining me on the call today from the Learning and Content Management team are my colleagues Nikita and Julian, and we also have Deepak from the Researcher Support team. Before we begin, today just a few points to mention. Firstly, please take a moment to complete the poll that you'll see on your screens. Your answers will be really helpful to us as we plan further webinars. If you have a question at any time during the content of the session, please use the Q&A option to send your question directly to us. We will try to answer as many questions as possible during the session today directly in the Q&A channel. If we cannot answer any of the questions, we will reply to you directly after the session via email, unless you post your question anonymously. And we will also be covering some of the questions at the end of the session as well, some of those frequently asked questions. For the best view, you may wish to drag the central bar of the screen to the right just to enlarge the screen that we're sharing. And you may also wish to enable live transcripts via the bar at the bottom of your screen as well. And finally, our session is being recorded, and you'll be sent a link to the recording within a couple of days of the session. So next we'll just take a look at our agenda for today. Okay, so first of all, we'll start by giving you an overview of the author's submission process in Editorial Manager. Please do note that the steps for submission may vary depending on the journal configuration and also on the type of article being submitted. Next, we will take a look at how to use the declaration tool when submitting a manuscript. Elsevier's declaration tool will quickly and easily help authors to create a comprehensive statement which incorporates the ICMJE, that's the International Committee of Medical Journal Editors, declaration standards. So this declaration tool will produce a statement in Word format that can be uploaded alongside your manuscript and will appear within the published article. So we'll take a look through how that works and how we can do that. After this, we'll then have a brief explanation of the various editorial statuses that your submission may progress through in Editorial Manager. And then finally, we'll also provide some information on the co-authorship verification step. Okay, so now we'll just move across to our Editorial Manager training site, and we'll go through the author submission process. Just to note as well that I'm going to be using our training site for this demonstration, and we use test users and test submissions. The training site is a good replica of the live environment, but it may look slightly different to your own profile. So don't worry if you don't see things today that you normally see when you log into your journal's profile. This is due to different rights and permissions that each role and each journal has. So these can vary depending on the journal that you're using. Okay, so just one moment and I'll move directly across to our training site. Okay, and Nikita, can I just check with you that you can see the training site on your screen, okay?
Yes, perfectly okay, Carol.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, so as I said, this is our Editorial Manager training site. When you come to your own journal's homepage, you'll see your journal's cover image appearing on the left here, and you'll also see the title of your journal at the top of the screen in this banner at the top here. If it's your first time to use this journal, you're not yet registered, then when you come to the login screen, the main menu, you can just click on this Register Now link just here in the center of the screen. Excuse me, and you'll then be asked to enter your various details, and you can register your account and then log in. If it's been a while since you've used this profile for this journal and perhaps you've forgotten your username or password, then you always have this option to send login details, and you can then enter your email and you can have the login. You'll have the option to then reset your password or other details. Once you are all ready to go, you're registered and you're ready to log in, you just need to enter your username and password in the center of the screen and then just click on this author login button just here. Okay, great. So once you log in, you'll see your author main menu displayed on the screen. A couple of things to mention at this point. You'll see the Resource Center link. I'm just going to minimize that for a moment. But on the right of the screen, when you log in, you'll see quite a few useful bits of information displayed here. So any upcoming author webinars, so such as this one, which we're actually having right now, listed here, but any future webinars as well will be listed here. And there's also a link to our webinar schedule, which you can have a look through and sign up and register to any forthcoming webinars. You'll also see lots of links to useful things like video guides, for example, a link to the author submission process video that we have, and other useful video guides, and then other resources listed down the bottom here as well, such as our user guide for authors for Editorial Manager. Before you begin the submission process, you may wish to refer to some of these just to familiarize yourself with how the process works. But a really important step before you begin submitting is to check through the guide for authors for your journal. Once you're logged into Editorial Manager, you can find the guide for authors from the About drop-down here in the navigation bar. From here, it's actually called the Instructions for Authors. So you may see it referred to as Instructions for Authors or Guide for Authors. It's also linked to directly from the journal's homepage as well. The Guide for Authors contains lots of useful specific information for your journal. So it will go through any specific requirements for your journal for submitting. So it's very important to check through that and be completely aware of all of those requirements before you start submitting a paper. Okay, so once you're actually ready to begin the submission process, you just need to click on this Submit New Manuscript button just here at the top of the screen. If you had previously started submitting your paper and you hadn't actually completed the submission process, or if you had for another article, you may see some incomplete submissions displayed on the screen here. You can always select that if it's the relevant one for you and carry on with the submission. But otherwise, at the bottom here, you'll see this option, No Start New Manuscript. So I'm just going to select that option here. Okay. So the first step in the submission process is where you will select your article type. So each journal will have its own specific set of article types, but most journals will have certain standard ones. So you just need to click on the drop down here, and for example, you might see full-length article, research article, and a variety of other options. If you're submitting your paper to a special issue, then you will also see the special issue article type displayed here. So just do ensure that you select the appropriate article type, especially if it's a special issue. You want to ensure it's going to the correct editor. So you just need to select the relevant article type. You may also have the option here to link to your ORCID record, and you can do that by clicking on this link just here. And then once you're ready, you can just click on the Proceed button at the bottom right of the screen. Great. Okay, so we have now moved on to the Attach Files step, which we can see just here. I just wanted to mention this kind of progress bar you'll see at the top of the screen here. So once you've completed a step and you've entered all necessary information, you'll see a green tick appearing. When you're actually on a particular step in the submission process, there'll be a blue circle with an arrow indicating that this is the step you're on. So we're currently at the Attach File section. If there's missing information and you need to complete that for any of the steps, then that will be in red. You can also click directly on the circle to go directly to that step as well. So rather than using the back and proceed buttons at the bottom of the screen, you can click directly on this to move within the steps for submission. So we're currently looking at the Attach File section. First of all, when you begin move to this step, the first thing you'll need to do is to upload your main manuscript file, the primary manuscript file. So to do that, you can either click on the Browse button, or you can also drag and drop a file from your computer directly here. So I'm just going to quickly browse and just find my manuscript file. And there we go, and just open that one. And once you've found that file and you've uploaded it, it will appear at the bottom of the screen here. When you've uploaded your manuscript file, if you just look at this item drop down here, you'll see all of the file types or item types available for your journal. Any item types or file types that have an asterisk next to them are required. So they're mandatory files. So you can't proceed with submission unless you actually upload a file to support that particular file type. So in this case, you'll see that the manuscript obviously is a mandatory file. And for this journal, we also need to upload a declaration of interest. So for in some cases, there may be an option to select research data. When this is available, you'll be asked to enter the URL where your data is hosted and also provide some additional information, such as the repository name and the title of the data set. And in the future, it will also become possible to upload data directly into Mendeley data. We don't currently have this option available within our training site. Also, for some journals, the cover letter is a mandatory option. A mandatory file type. So again, you'll see that displayed for this journal. It's optional, but it would be displayed with an asterisk next to it. The cover letter is something we often get a lot of questions from authors about, but it's quite a simple thing, really. It's a simple, brief business letter, and it's designed to introduce your manuscript to a prospective editor. So your guide for authors usually contains information about what to include in the cover letter. If it doesn't specify this, then you may wish to include some of the following items. So you may wish to specify any special considerations that should be given to your paper, if any. You might want to include a brief background regarding the research involved or how the data was collected. You may wish to include details of any previous or concurrent submissions. And then it's also useful to provide the editor-in-chief with any information that will support your submission. So things like any original or confirmatory data, information on the relevance or the topicality of the submission as well. So again, if that's mandatory, you would upload your cover letter at this stage. Then we have one other mandatory file type here, which is the declaration of interest. So I'm just going to quickly add that, upload a file just to include that. Just while we discuss declaration of interest, that's something that we will talk about a little bit later. I've mentioned the declaration tool, so I will be talking through how this works. This will be a mandatory file type for all journals. And as I said, I'll explain this in more detail a little bit later. But we do also have a short video on using the declaration tool in Editorial Manager, which will be shared in the chat with you as well. So you can refer to that. Okay, so as I've uploaded the declaration of interest, just to show you as well, it's always, you have to ensure that you select the relevant item type from the dropdown. So I've uploaded that declaration of interest. I'll just choose the relevant file type here. It's also important to ensure that you have included any description if you need to, but also that you've included the files in the appropriate order. So the journal, the system will designate the order. It will automatically put files in the order designated by your journal. But there may be things like figures, which you might have several figures that you've uploaded separately. And if they don't appear in the correct order here, then you can very easily reorder them. If you click on the blue icon, you can actually drag the click and hold, and you can drag the file to the correct location. You can also change the order by renumbering and then clicking on the update file order button. And that will then just ensure that the files appear and the figures, tables, whatever it is, appear in the correct order. Okay, so once you've uploaded all of those relevant files, you can actually, sorry, just before I do that, I just also wanted to mention this declaration of interest link here. As I said, we'll refer to this again later, but just to highlight on this attached files page, the link to that declaration of interest tool is available to you from here. But once you've uploaded those files and you're ready to go, you can just click on the proceed button here. Okay, so we're now at the general information step. This step will have differing requirements depending on your journal. So you might be asked to include things like the region of origin, as you'll see here. So you would just select the relevant one from the dropdown. Some journals may require a section or category, so there might be various sections within the journal, and you can then select the appropriate one from the dropdown again. For many journals, classifications will be set up for the journal. So you can see here, we also have the option to expand this menu here, and this is telling you this little red icon here is letting you know that this is a required field for this journal. So we'll just click on that to expand. So as I said, many journals will have classifications set up. Classifications are fixed terms which are created for the journal. So they're different to keywords, which you may be familiar with already. Keywords are free text that as an author you can select. You can come up with your own keywords for your manuscript, which you'll be asked to do. However, the classifications are terms already set up and specific to your journal. So if you come across this step during submission, you just need to click on the Add Classifications button. And then you will see all of the classifications set up for your journal. So it may just be a long list of terms shown on the left here in blue. You may have what we call a branched list, which you can see here where you see the little plus icon where you can expand. So you'll have a main term and then some sub terms displayed underneath. So you can expand on any of these just by clicking on that little plus icon. When you're submitting your paper, it's important to just have a look through all of these terms and to select the most appropriate ones for your journal. So in this example, 3 classification terms are required for this journal. There may be no specific number, or it might be 5, something like that. But it's always best to just check through that list to ensure you find the appropriate ones. This also helps the editors a lot because when they're searching for reviewers, the classification terms can help them to match relevant and the best reviewers for your manuscript. So to select the terms, you just need to tick the box next to those. So we'll just select a few here. And once you've selected the relevant terms, you click on the Add button here, and then you can click on Submit at the top of the screen here, or at the bottom as well. There's another option there. So you would then just add your terms, and you can see they're now displayed here. Okay, so once you've completed everything in this general information step, you just click on Proceed again at the bottom of the screen. Okay, so we are now on the Review Preferences screen. Again, depending on your journal's requirements, you'll see different options displayed on this screen at this step of the process. You may have the option to request an editor to handle your paper. So we have that option set up here. So I'll just select someone here. Many journals will also have the option to suggest reviewers for your paper. So again, I'll click on this menu bar here to just expand here. So for this journal, you need to suggest 1 reviewer. This is a requirement for submission. Other journals may require 2, 3 suggested reviewers, or it may just be an optional step, or indeed it may not appear at all. But if you see this option here and you need to suggest some reviewers, you can just click on this option to add suggested reviewer. When you do that, you'll see that you need to provide the reviewer's name, first name, last name, institution, and email address. And then there are also other optional fields, such as their position, department, and also a reason. So you may wish to provide a reason for why you're suggesting them as a potential reviewer for your paper. So I'm just going to quickly add a suggested reviewer here very quickly. Okay, and so once you've added the details, if you need to suggest multiple reviewers, you can click on this little option here to save this reviewer and add another one. Or if it's just one person you're suggesting, you can just click on this save icon, and that will then add them as the suggested reviewer here. You may also have the option to oppose a reviewer. So this isn't something that's used a lot, but if there is someone that you know should not be reviewing your paper, then so this obviously wouldn't be an author or something like that, but just somebody, another researcher, somebody that you think should not for a conflict of interest reason or something like that, you can add them here as an opposed reviewer. It is important to mention here that these are just your preferences. So this is not, if you suggest a reviewer here or request an editor, these are not guarantees. The editor will make their own decision as to who handles the manuscript, and also, of course, as to which reviewers they invite. So these are just suggestions. Great, and then we'll go ahead and click on proceed again once we've completed this information. Okay, we will next see the additional information screen. This step will present you with a series of questions which the journal will use to collect useful information to support the submission. You need to respond to each of these questions as appropriate. So these can be a variety of different things specific to the journal. So I'm just going to quickly answer these questions. Just choose various options, and then once you've answered all of the relevant questions for your submission, you can then again click on proceed at the bottom of the screen. You'll then come to the comment step. This is typically an optional step. It's not something you need to complete. It's just where you have the option to enter any additional comments for the journal office or for the handling editor of the paper. These comments will not appear directly in your submission, so they're just something that you can add here as kind of a note for the editorial office. If you include anything there, you can do so, and then when ready, click on proceed. Okay. So when you have done that, you'll now see that we're on this step here, which is the manuscript data section. The system usually will automatically pull the data from the manuscript file that we've provided to pre-populate the fields on the manuscript data step. So for example, here you can see the title has been pulled in and other details as well. Occasionally this information may not directly appear here, so you will need to directly type in or copy and paste the title and abstract and so on into the relevant fields here. So it's important, even if it has automatically pulled in that information, you need to double check to ensure that it's all accurate and correct. If there is an asterisk, a little icon here, it will just ask you to review it. So for example, the abstract, if we expand this section here, the abstract has automatically been pulled in from the file, but you need to check that to make sure it's all correct. Similarly, the keywords have also been pulled in from the manuscript file, but again, we need to check those. And if any, obviously make any updates as necessary, and then the keywords should be separated by semicolons here as well. Then anything that is currently missing where we need to take an action, you'll see with the red icon here. So the author section is an important one, which we need to review before we actually go ahead and submit the article. So firstly, in this example, I've just got one author listed here, but the most important thing is to ensure that all authors of the submission are listed. And you need to ensure that you have included their full name, their current contact email address, and their institution. It's important that you choose their institution from the dropdown, as they may be eligible. You may be eligible for various institutional or society discounts, which could reduce your article publishing charges for gold open access if you're following the open access publication route. So there's further information available on that one, but you can see the details displayed just here. It's important that you also select the contributing role for each of the authors as well. So I'm just going to click here because we've got some required information missing here for this author. So I'll just click on that option here to just expand. So you can see this is the corresponding author who we're submitting as. So all of their appropriate fields are completed here. However, you can also see the contributor role here. This section is not currently complete. So for each author, you need to click here to edit and add their role for the manuscript. So for example, if this person was responsible for the investigation and methodology, you would tick those boxes next to this field for this particular author. So you need to do that for each author of the paper. And then when you're ready, click on the save option. As we've done that, also to mention as well that co-authors may receive an email notification from the journal. So we, at this point, we'll share the co-author verification video that we have in the chat. And we'll also talk a bit later about how you can actually verify your authorship, but that's one point to mention here. If you've got several authors listed here and you realize they're in the wrong order, you can reorder the authors. As we saw previously with the files, you can reorder the list of authors by clicking on the blue icon and then just dragging them to the appropriate spot within the list. When all of the author details are present and correct, you can then click on the next button here and you'll see the funding information step will appear here. If you hover over here, apologies. If you hover over this little eye icon, you may see this eye icon, information icon at various other steps in the process as well. This will give you information about the step that you're seeing on screen. So this is just letting you know some information about funding and the importance of including the relevant information and giving you other details on the funding step as well. So to add a funding source, you would click on this button here and include the relevant information. Otherwise, you would just click, if there's no funding for the article, you would just click on the funding information is not available option here. At this point as well, something that we don't have enabled for our training site, but on the next screen, if your journal you may have the option to select open access publishing options if it's relevant for your journal. So some journals will encourage authors to view and select the appropriate open access publishing option at the submission stage. So at the next step here, you would then select the appropriate option and then click proceed and go ahead and proceed with the submission process. However, for this example, we're now ready. We've completed, as we can see, if I just scroll back up, you can see all of the green ticks appearing here. So all of the relevant information has been included. So we'll now click on this option to build the PDF for approval. Okay, so this brings you to the submissions waiting for approval by author screen. At this point, if I scroll down, this is the article we're just submitting, and you can see the status is that it's building the PDF. This can take differing times for the PDF to build, depending on things like the size of the files. So if you upload a lot of large figure files, for example, it may take a little longer for the PDF to build. Sometimes yep, as you can see, the PDF is built here. So sometimes that can take a little bit longer for larger manuscript files or larger file types. You need to click on the View Submission button here to actually view the submission. This is mandatory. If you don't click on View Submission, you can't actually proceed to submit your manuscript. So if you click on that, you can see it's just downloaded the PDF here. So you can then open the PDF. You need to check through that to ensure all of your files and information are correct. If there was any issue with figures not displaying correctly or something like that, then you would need to go back and click on Edit Submission to go back and maybe upload a different file or just make changes to the submission. Also on the right of the screen, apologies, on the right of the screen here, you'll see the information here on publishing ethics guidelines and also on copyright terms. So you can click on the links to open those documents to just check through those and confirm that everything there is correct. And then before you proceed, you need to tick the I accept button just here to confirm that you accept those conditions. Then once you're happy with how the manuscript looks and the PDF looks and you've ticked that box, you can then click on Approve Submission. Approve Submission. At this point, then you might be asked about updating your ORCID ID, linking to your ORCID ID. We're just going to go ahead and proceed without an ORCID ID for this example. And then it will ask you to confirm that you're happy to approve the submission. So we will click on OK. Okay, so at this point, you'll now receive confirmation on screen that you've approved your submission. At this point, your submission is now submitted to the journal for consideration, and you'll receive an email confirmation of this. If you realize that you have, at this point, that you've forgotten to upload a file or something is incorrect, you can't actually make any changes directly here. However, if you contact the researcher support team, they will be able to assist you and help in making any updates at this point. at this point as well, I also mentioned previously the information on the video that we have on the submission process overview. So that author submission process overview video will be shared in the chat as well. On the bottom right of the screen, I also wanted to point out this link to the Resource Centre. So from here, there's a lot of useful information, FAQs, a link to the Journal Article Publishing Support Centre, where you'll find lots of useful video guides and details for you as an author on the submission process. And you'll also find details on how to contact our researcher support team. So the chat option is a really useful way to get in touch with them quickly and to get an answer. And they're available 24 hours a day to help with any queries that you might have. So things like login, if you're having login issues, or as I said before, if you have if you're having any issues or you've noticed you've missed something in the submission, you can contact them in that particular way. Okay. So that's a very quick overview of how you actually go about submitting your article. Once the paper has been submitted, it will then appear in your submissions being processed folder, and then it will move through various folders here depending on the stage that your paper is within the system. At this point, I wanted to just move on to how you can use the declaration tool in Editorial Manager. So when we were looking at the file, uploading the files at that attach file stage, we saw that there was the option to go directly to the declaration tool from there. Also from the, you can also find that link directly from the guide for authors for your journal as well. So again, the guide for authors that is available from the dropdown, and this instructions for authors link here as well. So the declaration tool is something which is a mandatory file. That declaration of interest file is a mandatory file type, and transparent disclosure of potential competing interests is something that's essential to meeting your ethical obligations and also to nurturing the trust in science. So we now offer this declaration tool within Editorial Manager, which can quickly and easily help you as an author to create a comprehensive statement which incorporates the declaration standards of the ICMJE, which I mentioned previously, the International Committee of Medical Journal Editors. So this statement can be uploaded as a Word document alongside your manuscript, and it will then appear in your published article. So I mentioned from the instructions for authors, you can find that link also from the attach files step as well. So I actually have the link open already, so I'm just going to go directly to there. So when you click on that link, you'll be brought directly to the declaration tool. You will see here, if you can read through all of the relevant information on the screen about declaring your interests. And then if we scroll down to the bottom of the screen, when you're ready, firstly, you have this option here. You can click on I have nothing to declare. Please note that for some journals, this option may be present. Obviously, you should only use that option to directly generate a statement when you're confident that you and your co-authors have nothing to declare. For some journals, this option will not be available to you, so you will have to go through the process of beginning your declaration. So you can click this option if to indicate this. However, for this example, we're going to go through the declaration process. So we'll click on the Start My Declaration button here at the bottom right of the screen. Okay. So on the first page of the process, this is called the research support for this reported work. So here you declare any support that you or any of your co-authors have received from certain types of third parties. So this relates right back to the initial conception of the research for the article. It's important to note that you don't need to list any academic institutions or public funding sources from charitable foundations or government agencies here. So you can fill in the details on the screen here of this kind of support. You just type in the organization name and then select any relevant financial or non-financial support. If you need to add additional funding sources, so once you filled in the first one, you have the option to add another funding source here as well. And you can fill in those details. You'll also need to add who received the support as well. So be it the corresponding author or any of the co-authors as well. At the top of the screen, you'll see this toggle button. This can be used if this research did not receive any support. So if you didn't receive any additional support that needs to be declared, you can click this toggle button, and then that will remove all of that information. You can then go ahead and move on to the next step. You'll also see the option to save declaration for later at each step in the process. So if you've begun the process and you're not ready, you can't complete it all in one go, you can choose this option. And you can then come back within the next 30 days to continue this declaration process. So that's just this option here. But once you're ready on this step, you can click on next, and we'll move to the other support step here. Okay, so here we're at the relevant support outside this reported work. So here you need to disclose if you or any of your co-authors have any financial interests or personal relationships related to the subject matter, but not directly to the manuscript. The time frame for other support is within the last 3 years. Again, fill in any relevant details on the screen. You can see here the option again to add further fields if necessary. And you also have the toggle button at the bottom of the screen here if you've nothing to disclose for this step. Again, the save button will be here, or we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so the next step is the intellectual patents and intellectual property step. This page allows you to disclose any relevant patents or copyrights licensed to you or any of your co-authors. And again, once you've completed this information or you've selected the toggle button here, you can then move on to the next step. Great, so this is the other activities field that we can see here. This is the final page of the declaration tool. So here you can submit any further information that a reader of your manuscript or your article could perceive to have influenced the work. So anything that's not been covered in the previous steps that we've been through. Again, anything can be filled in here. And once you fill this in or selected the toggle button to indicate that it's not relevant and you've nothing to declare, you can then click on the review declaration step. So we'll move on to that. So this screen will summarize all of the information that you've provided. You'll see the back button here, which you can use if you notice something's not correct and you want to go back to that step and update the information that you've chosen here. Once you are happy and everything here looks correct, you can click on the submit and download button. So when you click on this button here, you'll then be offered the option to enter your email address to save your declaration statement. You'll also receive this prompt, the same prompt, if you decide to save your progress at any stage and come back later. So if you do this, you'll have to enter a one-time passcode, and then you can come back and download your declaration and obviously come back later. So the tool, you can also go back to the tool and download the declaration again for the next 30 days if you decide to use this option to enter your email address. Alternatively, you can click on this option here. No thanks, I want to download a declaration without saving it. So I'm just going to do this for this example. And then you can see your declaration is now ready. So the declaration tool has created a document. It's actually been downloaded just here using the information entered. And this can now be opened up as a Word document. And you can then refer to that. So during the process of submitting your article in that attach file step, this link is provided here. So when you're actually uploading your files, you would then upload the Word document that we've just created using the declaration tool as the declaration of interest file type from the dropdown. And this is a mandatory file type, so you can then proceed with the submission process as you go. If you saved your declaration, you can also access it from the home screen of the declaration tool using the access with a one-time passcode option. So that's available to you. If you want to know more information about this process, we do have a video called Using the Declaration Tool in Editorial Manager, and this will be shared in the chat, so you can refer to that as well. Okay, so that is how we use the declaration tool in Editorial Manager. I'm now just going to move back to the slides, so just bear with me one moment. Okay, Nikita, can I just check that the slides are now visible? You can see the presentation?
All perfect, Carol. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Nikita. Okay, so now we're going to move back here to talk about how you can track your submission within Editorial Manager. When tracking your submission, when you've finished writing your paper and you've submitted it to the journal, the system will show the status of the manuscript as manuscript submitted. Then, based on the workflow of the journal, the editorial office or the editor will perform a technical check on your manuscript. They check it for various things like word count, format, figure quality, and so on. The next step in the process is assigning the paper either to the editor-in-chief or to an associate editor for further handling. Journals usually have multiple associate editors who are experts in a particular field within the broader subject area of the journal. So your manuscript will be handled by the editor who has the highest level of expertise and understanding of your paper's research topic. The status will remain as with editor until the editor either makes a decision or invites reviewers. The handling editor at this point has different actions available, so they may choose to make a desk reject. If this is the case, you'll see the paper as showing as rejected, or they may decide to send the paper back for revision, or indeed they may decide to begin the review process and invite reviewers. The editor will conduct an initial screening of your paper and assess it against various criteria, things like novelty, priority, and scope. So if your paper is a better match for another journal, you may be offered a manuscript transfer. It may also be possible that your paper does not meet some of the assessment criteria and the editor may decide to reject it before sending it for peer review. If the editor decides that your paper is a good match for the journal, they will then identify 2 or 3 independent reviewers, again, depending on the journal's settings and configuration, and they'll then send it invitations to review your manuscript. Okay. So when the editor invites reviewers, the status of your paper will change to under review. Once the required number of reviews are received by the editor and the recommendations are submitted, the status of the manuscript will show as required reviews complete. At this point, the handling editor carefully studies the review reports from the reviewers. It may happen that the referee reports are conflicting, so we may have one person suggesting reject and another person thinking it may be acceptable after some minor revision. If this happens, the editor may need to find additional reviewers. So you may see occasionally that a paper will move back to under review at this point. So it might be at the required reviews complete step, and then it might jump back to under review again. When the editor has received enough high quality feedback from the reviewers, they'll then begin the decision-making process and move the status to decision in process. The decision, again, depending on each journal, it may need to be confirmed by multiple editors in the decision chain. And the paper then moves to the editor-in-chief's account. The editor-in-chief will then submit his or her decision. For revise, the editor has requested that you revise the submission, and you'll find details of changes requested and suggestions from the reviewers and from the editor. And the deadline for your revision will also be provided in the decision letter. Accept or reject, the submission process has been completed with either an accept or reject option. In this case, in the case of an accept decision, the manuscript will begin its production process, so it'll move to the production system and you'll receive further information about that. You may see it showing as transfer pending. This is where the editor has rejected your paper and suggested transfer to another journal via our article transfer service. The editor, so this is an automatic thing. However, the the suggestion is automatic, but it is something that you as an author can decide if you're happy to proceed with or not. So it will remain at this status while we await the response from the corresponding author before proceeding. If you decide to accept the transfer to the other journal, then the status will show as submission transferred. This confirms that you've accepted the transfer and the submission is now transferred to another journal. We also have published a video on the submission status explainer, which goes through each of these and explains in more detail. So that the link to that video will also be posted in the chat for you to refer to. I also wanted to mention the submission tracker tool. This is a tool that's been introduced to more than 2,000 journals. Once a journal is using submission tracker, an email is sent to the corresponding author when the first reviewer is invited. And as you can see from this screenshot, the email contains a link to the submission tracker landing page. So from here, the author can view the status of the review process of their submission. Note that the same link will remain active throughout the end-to-end peer review process. We also expect to have the submission tracker tool available to all journals in the near future. So if it's not currently available to you, it may be soon. And this is just showing you the submission tracker landing page for a submission. So it looks like we can see on the screen here. And from here, you can monitor the complete status of your manuscript. We also want to highlight the importance of handling fake acceptance letters. It's an issue that unfortunately comes up from time to time and is something that we want to ensure all authors are aware of. So at Elsevier, we want to ensure and to help all authors to stay safe when publishing. So unfortunately, we are aware that there are a number of scams in operation which seek to fraudulently obtain money from authors. Typically, these schemes take the form of emails purporting to be from a journal's editorial office, asking the authors to pay a fee. Often this request is made at the same time as announcing that the paper has been accepted for publication, even though in reality it's still in the editorial review process. There are some tips on how these on screen here. You can see these are some tips on how you can avoid being scammed and also ensure that you stay safe when publishing as well. So some of this information is very useful to you relating to the emails, just ensuring that when you do receive communication that it will always be from an @elsevier.com email address, and other details here as well regarding requests for payment as well. Okay, the next point I wanted to discuss was co-author verification. So when submitting a paper, authors are asked to list all of the co-authors of the submission. Editorial Manager journals request co-authors confirm their co-authorship. This helps to ensure that authorship includes all individuals who have made a significant contribution to the conception, design, execution, or interpretation of the manuscript. So how do I verify my contribution as a co-author? Requests to verify may be for a new submission or for a revised submission. The journal will send co-authors an email notification, which includes a deep link to verify co-authorship. Some journals will ask that you also register or log in to the Editorial Manager site to confirm your co-authorship, which will also allow you to view the status of the submission as well. Some journals will ask that you also, as I said, register or log in to confirm your co-authorship. And you'll see the status here. So this is just an example of the login screen. Depending on the journal configuration, you may also receive up to 2 reminders to verify your co-authorship. We have also created a video on co-authorship verification, which is hosted on our YouTube channel, which will also be shared in the chat section now. So that's another useful one to refer to. We also wanted to highlight the author guide to Editorial Manager. So you can click on the author guide link and I've just provided the details here in this guide. It will highlight various learning pathways included for authors, including instructional videos and articles. It's a really useful, cohesive guide to the whole process as an author. So you'll see this was linked to from the eye icon that we saw, the information icon. So you can go through from the journal article publishing support center and click through all the links and just go through the whole process, so you know exactly how to go through and submit your article. And then in this final point, I just wanted to talk about practical guidance for writing an effective results section. So just to briefly mention this, this is our Did You Know corner. So we're going to highlight just some practical advice for you for writing this effective results section. So always use simple and clear language, avoid the use of uncertain or out of focus expressions. The findings of the study must be expressed in an objective and unbiased manner. While it is acceptable to correlate certain findings in the discussion section, it's best to avoid interpreting the results. If the research addresses more than one hypothesis, then use subsections to describe the results. And this helps to prevent confusion and also promotes understanding. It's also important to ensure that negative results are included in the section, even if they don't support the research hypotheses. Wherever possible, use illustrations like tables, figures, and charts or other visual representations to showcase the results of your research data. And you can mention these illustrations in the text, but don't repeat the information that they convey. And for statistical data, it's also adequate to highlight the tests and explain the results. The initial or raw data should not be mentioned in the results section of a research paper. But that brings us to the end of our webinar today. And thank you all very much for listening and for joining and for asking questions. After this session, as I mentioned before, we'll send various information. So we'll send you an email that will contain some helpful links, so including the webinar recording, links to some short video guides that relate directly to what we've covered today. So please do look out for that email. Again, the poll, if you could answer that poll, that would be really helpful. All of the answers that you provide are really useful in helping us to create content for future webinars and to update, what we present to you. So please do to complete that if you could. I think we may still have a couple of questions awaiting answers, so we'll keep the call open until those have been answered. But thank you all very much for joining, and we hope to see you next time.